Hi everybody, this is Maya and I wanted to do a video about my journal. As you can tell, I'm not my usual location. I am in New Orleans and I am at Jackson Square. You might hear music in the background and you're probably going to hear a whole bunch of tourists behind me, but it's such a lovely location. I'm just hanging out here until it's time for me to go ahead and check into my hostel. So the reason why I want to do this is it really came to mind when I was narrowing down my pack. It was really too heavy and I was giving away stuff, and I originally had several journals in my pack, but carrying paper just isn't really smart. It's really heavy. That said, I journal on paper. I can't do it on computer. So what I ended up doing was deciding to go to one book, well actually two, because I do have my planner, and sending my other journals to my son so that as I use up journals, he can send me new ones. I can send him my journals for storage. And then as time progresses and I go through all my old journals, I can get new journals wherever I happen to be in the world. But one thing I wanted to talk about was how I use my journals. I never really did journaling as a kid. I had a really bad experience. I think I mentioned it here before. My mom had bought me a journal with a key and I was just so excited, and I wrote all my personal thoughts and my secrets. I must have been in like 4th or 5th grade. And then she proceeded to go through my journal and correct all the spelling, underlying grammar errors, and it crushed me. And from that point on, I've always been in love with journals. I buy them, I use them for a few pages, and then I just stop. And I tend to use them for note-taking because I just can't keep up my journaling. But recently, I've been able to do it, and I wanted to talk to you about how I do it and why I'm finding it helpful. So the first thing I started doing was morning pages. I was watching several YouTubers, and they were doing this system where every morning when they first wake up, before they're fully awake, they sit down and they write 3 pages. And I started doing that when I was in my car getting prepared to leave California, and things were just going wrong all over the place. And I started doing that, and I felt so much better doing morning pages, and it really helped me coalesce my thoughts, my goals together. And so that's one way of using them. But there's another way that I use my journal, and that pertains directly to my writing skills, and that is for writing practice. And when I say practice, I'm not really talking about like practicing journal, like practicing spelling or grammar or practicing various techniques. As far as having a goal, like I'm going to learn to write in first person, so you write a whole bunch of first person stuff. Not that kind of practice. I'm talking about practice more in the way that like someone that does martial arts does practice. It's a constant something that they do every day that gradually over time improves their skills. So what I've been doing is something that I used to do ages ago, and I forgot how enjoyable it was. And that is periodically, at least once a day, I will open up my journal and then just describe what I see. Describe people, describe the environment, really take notes on what is going on around me. And what it's done for me is it's improved my skills of observation. It's improved my use of all senses when I'm writing stories, because I am constantly doing that during my writing practice at least once a day. I like to do it when I'm someplace interesting or when I see something interesting, but it doesn't always have to be, because sometimes you'll look at something totally mundane and then you sit down and you start writing about it and you discover all kinds of little things in it that are miraculous and amazing. And so one thing that really happened for me on my way to New Orleans, I took a 4-day Greyhound bus ride to Tallahassee and then a 1-day Greyhound bus ride to here. And in both situations, I saw a lot of interesting people, interesting families, interesting interactions. And I took notes on them. And then as I was sitting here in the park, I was watching a young couple try to take pictures in front of that giant statue. And she had taken a wonderful picture of him and then proceeded to spend the next hour trying to teach him how to take a decent picture of herself. And she was frustrated, and he was feeling, you could tell that he was feeling bossed around. And you could see the difference in the body language, and that's something I took notes on, because those are things that by practicing observing people's body language, it becomes a more fluent part of my vocabulary when I'm writing other things. And another example is when I got off the bus, I was walking on the street and I immediately took notes on the way New Orleans smelled, the way the air felt, the way the sun looked, the way older people looked that was different from older people in where I'm from. And their different body language, their different speech. And some of it's in shorthand, but these are all things that are fuel for my writing later on. And it doesn't even have to pertain to people. It doesn't even have to pertain to location. You know, I was sitting here earlier and some people were eating beignets, and they were obviously tourists. They didn't know how to deal with all that sugar. And because the beignets were no longer hot, the sugar was no longer sticking to them, so they left a pile of sugar on the ground. And after they left, some birds went and were eating the sugar. And then one bird was picking up sugar and feeding it to another bird. And that's something I wrote. It was beautiful. And who knows, it may never appear anywhere else, or in 5 years it may suddenly appear in a poem that I've written. And so when you're thinking about journaling is in order to improve your writing, I highly suggest morning pages, because it gets all those thoughts out of you, which frees you up to be creative, especially if you write in the morning. Doing 3 pages or 2 pages or 4 pages, whatever you need, just to get that surface level out before you start diving deep into your fiction is helpful. But also look at other ways of using a journal, like what I'm doing, you know, just taking observations of the world around you, or using it for writing prompts, or using it to describe colors, or, you know, whatever it is that you're finding interesting, and just to keep writing and know that every bit of writing you do, regardless of the type of writing it is giving you skills, but it's also giving you a reserve of experiences that you can pull from in your writing. And so that is my video for today. It was great talking to you guys. I missed you. I'm definitely going to be doing more of these videos now that I'm on the road. It's been an amazing experience. You know, I had so many interesting interactions taking the bus. Normally, the bus is considered a lesser form of transportation when you're talking long distance. Greyhound a lot of times doesn't have the best of reputation, but I had a wonderful time on the bus, being able to see the environment, talking to people about their towns, especially some of the smaller towns, you know, that I don't understand, and being able to talk to somebody about what it was like growing up in a small town, and why they've never left, and what they find beautiful about their town. Being able to talk to a bus driver about his experience of being a bus driver, being able to see drug addicts from a distance and get up close enough to hear their interactions and hear the way they speak to each other. Those are all things that I found really interesting, you know, even to the point where I saw just a beautiful interaction that I know is going to end up in my writing eventually. I don't know how. I don't know whether it's going to be in a poem, whether it's going to be in my fiction, whether it's going to be something that one of my characters sees. I don't know. But I was at the Dallas Greyhound, and there was this huge extended family, Mennonite family, that was traveling to Mexico. And it was so interesting watching them, because all the children were teenagers. They were probably ages 14 to 18. Then there were their parents, and then there were elders with them as well. And the parents were just sitting, chatting, drinking water, looking exceptionally bored and frustrated with the bus system. The kids were sprawled out on the ground playing cards. And there were 2 young teenagers that were probably 16, 17 years old, and you could tell they had crushes on each other, and they were flirting in a very delicate and very gentle way. It was really sweet watching how they flirted with each other. And then I looked out of the corner of my eye, and one of the elders was watching them, and you could tell that he thought it was sweet. Like, he had a little grin on his face, and he was watching them, and I just imagined him re-experiencing his youth and re-experiencing his first crush as he's watching these teenagers, you know, flirt with each other. And they did it in such a way that was so innocent and something that you don't really see, like nowadays when kids are flirting with each other. A lot of times it's kind of blunt, but these kids were just so delicate and old-fashioned and conservative and gentle about the way they were flirting with each other that I had to write about it. I had to take notes so that that's a memory that I won't forget, so that I can keep it in my reserve for later on. So I hope this video was interesting. If you have any ideas for videos that you would like to see about my writing as I begin my travels, definitely put them in the down bar. I'm going to be in New Orleans for approximately 6 to 8 weeks while I wait for my passport to get here, and then I'm heading to Mexico. Ciao.